Are you looking for the best 2024 NFL bets around? Then get ready for this week's episode of the NFL's Week 10 IDP Plus Defensive Props Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the IDP Plus Defensive Props Podcast. Johnny and I have been giving you guys 8 players each week whose tackle lines we like, whether it be combined, assisted, or solo tackle lines. We've been specializing in the defensive side of the ball on this show, so we're going to go ahead and kick off our 8 picks for this week, but I just want to throw everybody a reminder that these aren't even really suggestions. We've just done this research looking into bets of our own. So we're just laying out the information that we found, the research we did, and we're laying it all out here on the table and giving you all the spreads. So pick and choose whatever you like. Let us know in the comments if you tail on any of them, if you particularly like any. Any questions or whatever, throw it in the comments. We're looking to interact. We'll be keeping our eyes on it. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and step into it. And I'll start it off here with my first play this week, and that's Andre Cisco to get under 5.5 total tackles. He goes up against the Minnesota Vikings this week. And historically, so far this season, the Minnesota Vikings have allowed actually the least amount of tackles to opposing safeties. So, already for an under, we're playing in a porous matchup. The very last matchup in terms of tackling production allowed to safeties. So that just kind of playing into our favor a little bit more here. You can kind of find more backup on those stats if you go follow PFF's John Macri. He puts out a tackle sheet and just kind of keeps that up to date with what offenses are allowing tackles to what positions on the defensive side of the ball. So again, we've got a poor matchup and a guy who actually only averages 4.4 tackles per game, and the line is at 5.5 in a poor matchup, and the under's actually already even hit 77% of the time. Sign me up for this under on Andre Cisco. Low floor, poor matchup, and I mean, what else do you want other than history just repeating itself? We hit on Andre Cisco earlier, I think a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to specify on the combined tackle line, and I like it at minus 145 this week. So kick it off to you, Johnny. Here, let us know if you got any thoughts on that, and then you can kind of dive us into your first pick of this week.
I do like that pick, Axton. I like it because, like you said, number one, it's a bad matchup. Minnesota doesn't give that opportunity to the position, and then you look at the fact that Minnesota is probably leading in this game to Jacksonville. At that point, the Cisco have that many opportunities to make tackles, or is Minnesota up and they can run the ball, and game script is not on his side. So history is not on his side. Game script is likely not to be on his side. But I like the side that you picked there with that under with Cisco. So good first pick. My first pick is something similar. I'm going another under, and that is Demario Davis from the Saints under 8.5 combined tackles versus the Falcons. Minus 130. I like this. History tells us it's a good, history's on our side. It's a good bet. 6 out of 8 games that the Davis has played, 6 out of 8 games, he has hit this marker, meaning he has gone under 8.5 combined tackles. Week 9 last week versus Carolina, a team that doesn't give many tackles to linebackers. He had 5 tackles. Well, I'll tell you what, Atlanta is who he plays this week. They give up less on paper. It's a worse matchup than Carolina was last week, even. So didn't hit last week. He's hit this a couple times on fluky games, but he can always hit this at any given time. Demario Davis is still a great vet, but when it comes to Week 10, under or over 8.5 combined tackles, I'm taking the under, and that's what I'm doing here for minus 130. Good odds. I think this should be worse odds for us, but minus 130, we're pretty close to even, and I'm pretty confident in this one, Axton.
Yeah, I like that. You're really those 8.5 tackle line, 8.5. combined tackle lines. You really like to see more, or you generally see more for like your top end tacklers. Demario Davis is more of like the pass rushing linebacker who will just kind of play more around the line of scrimmage rather than soaking up all the tackles. Now he's not been no stranger to 10 tackle games, and he has historically had a fairly good floor. But this season so far, he's only hit this in 2 games, and he's actually playing in a bottom five matchup. Same. I just took a look at John Macker's little sheet, and yeah. The Atlanta Falcons are a bottom five matchup for opposing linebackers. They've allowed in terms of just tackle production allowed. So the fact that we're seeing Demario Davis's line at 8.5, not even 7.5, 8.5, and he's only hit it twice. Yeah, sign me up for a little bit of that. I forgot to even put the banner. So there's our banner there. Sorry, I missed you.
You're good, bro.
But, I'll dive into my next pick here. That's EJ Speed. We're actually going to flip the script a little bit. We got a lot of unders this week, but I'm going to put in one of our overs right now for EJ Speed over 5.5 solo tackles. This comes in at -120. And EJ Speed actually comes into this matchup. Haven't hit this in 6 of 8 games, so he's hit this on 75% of the games that he's played. The games that he's played, he's missed a game. But actually, Johnny pointed this out to me before the show that he missed a game and he still has more solos than Zaire Franklin this season. So he gets them at an extremely high clip, and we actually even did the calculations. So far this season, 70% of his tackles have been solos, so he gets them at a 70% clip. So out of every 10 tackles, he's getting 7 solos, and the books have his total tackle line at 9.5. They're pretty nervous that he could reach 10 or 9, and if he gets either one of those numbers, we're looking to cash this given history. Hopefully that it can repeat itself. The teams know that when they play the Indianapolis Colts that they can generally run the ball pretty well. The Colts just allow a lot of rushing yardage, and that's just what teams know whenever they go into this game against the Colts. You see all kinds of production in the second and third levels of the field. You see all kinds of 10 tackle games coming from the linebackers and safeties. That's because opposing offenses know they can run the football on them. They get a lot of production, but they don't. They also allow a lot of production, so they're not really exactly great at stopping the football early on down the field. They kind of let teams have their way, but they do make those tackles. So EJ Speed hitting at 70% rate, give me that at -120.
And you know
What do you
what?
got next
Actually,
for us?
I checked the odds. The most common name, the household name out of those two would be Franklin, and most people are probably looking at his line right now. But it's interesting. You'd mentioned about the fact that Speed has played one less game, but 9 more solo tackles on the season. A lot of people are tricked, or Zaire Franklin is a mainstay at the linebacker position when it comes to tackles. But yeah, man, I think to be 10 points off in a bet, you picked the right one for sure. One less game played, but 9 more solos. If you're chasing solos for the Colts this week, EJ Speed is your guy. So love that pick, Axton. I'm going to go back to my unders, back to an under at -130. Nothing changed but the name, and that's Lavonte Campbell, under 6.5 combined tackles versus Tampa Bay. And listen, don't get me wrong. This is a guy who last game played before the bye, played 100% of snaps, hit this marker, 7 tackles versus Dallas. That's the last game he had played. But hear me out. Like Lavonte Campbell, I don't think is playing his best ball. He's a little bit over the hill here for San Francisco. I think people on Twitter, if you look his name, especially fans have a bad taste in their mouth about him. So Lavonte Campbell. Somebody who I think is on the decline. Actually, our buddy IDP Hunter asked us, he had told me in a tweet about that Lavonte Campbell may be losing some snaps to D Winners in the nickel package coming here as this, is the second linebacker moving forward. So Lavonte Campbell, like you look at the last game, 100% of the snaps, they were all there. I think this might trend down, and as it is right now, even if it doesn't, the Lavonte Campbell, who's been playing full time next to Fred Warner the whole year, he's hit this marker under 6.5, 5 out of 8 games. So that alone by itself is already on our side. Week 8, like I said, 7 tackles. He hit this marker. Don't be so scared because week 6, week 7, two games before that, 3 and 4 tackle games. Like Devondre Campbell does have upside in the right matchup, but this is versus Tampa Bay. This is a bottom 10 matchup to linebackers. Devondre Campbell a little bit iffy to get 6.5, 7 tackles in a good matchup, let alone one versus Tampa Bay. So again, decent odds -130. Whether the smoke turns into fire about the snap count, I mean, that nothing's given. That could be, but hey, if he's already playing 100% of snaps, this is already a full-time player. It can only get worse from here.
Yeah, I agree. I like that play for Devondre Campbell's underline. We hit one on him earlier this year. Uh, you'd like to see it. You would hope to have seen it a little bit at like 7.5, but you can't blame the books. And honestly, the odds are still in your favor. Like you said, he's hit this only in 3 of the games so far this year, and you gotta imagine that maybe game script played into his favor. Well, if you're looking at a bottom end matchup on a guy who has a low tackle floor, again, insert my comments about Andre Cisco earlier. So, sign me up for some Devondre Campbell under what I guess it would be under 7 tackles. So, I like that one. We'll kind of move on here to my next play. That is going to be Zach Baun. I guess I'm the one that took all the overs. Johnny had all unders. I had the 2 overs this week. So we'll dive into some Zach Baun here, but bear with me because we got some plus money. So his over assisted tackle line came in at +100, and he plays the Dallas Cowboys this week. Dallas lost Dak, but have no fear because we've seen historically that Cooper Rush he can run this offense. He can sustain drives. He doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, he's a great backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. So I think that Dallas is still going to be able to push the ball down the field. I think that this is actually even a top 10 matchup for tackles allowed to opposing linebackers, anyways. So the fact that the offense is not really shouldn't anyways skip a beat. I think Zach Baun is going to be in a great position to soak up some tackles this year, and he's already presented an extremely high floor, which just in terms of total tackles, but for assisted tackles at this 3.5 line of 3.5, however you want to say that. Bond's actually hit this in 5 of 8 games so far this season, so that's a 63% hit rate. I'd like to see that a little bit more. We only have 8 games to go off of, so the percentages go up and down quite a bit more with less data each week. So 5 of 8 still pretty good. We're still looking at over 50% hit rate, and since the Dallas bye, they've actually let 3 out of 4 opposing linebackers hit this in the last couple of weeks. So I think Zach Baun being the leading tackle getter for this Philadelphia defense, I think he's going to be a shoe-in to get 3.5 assisted tackles. I think he ought to be right in the mix with plenty of defensive linemen and maybe Nakobe Dean on a few tackles. So I like this 3.5 tackle lineman. Give me some plus juice on this. So like I say, I think this should still be a competitive game. I think some people might think that Philly could get away with this, but I think Cooper Rush is going to be just fine, honestly. And the Philadelphia secondary has been known to be suspect, so I think Dallas will be able to keep this game surprisingly competitive. Even with Cooper Rush at quarterback. So sign me up for some Zach Baun over 3.5 with some plus juice on it, Johnny.
Yeah, I like that. Plus, you get the juice too. I mean, this is something that is likely to happen. He's averaging this over the last 2 games. I mean, you have Zach Baun, somebody who this is coming off double-digit tackles. You have to be in the mix. It's tough to just rely on solos to hit double-digit tackles. So you have to be involved with the assist marker. And like you said, 5 out of 8 games hitting this line with the assists with 4 or more. So yeah, just Zach Baun. I mean, I'm not doubting him. I don't doubt him at this point. Just an animal, especially over the last couple games. Like Nakobe Dean seems like to be, up and down, right, competing with him. Who's the better linebacker? Nakobe Dean, I think, just had 2 assisted tackles last week. So Zach Baun, he's the hot pick right now. Double digit games back to back weeks. Let's make it a third week in a row, Axton. I like this pick for you. And like I said, good juice there. So Zach Baun, very likely to make good on this for you. Let's hope for hopefully the next thing for mine. I'm going to go back with another under here. Hopefully he makes good for me, and that is Tremaine Edmunds under 7.5 combined tackles versus New England. Again, an under, and again minus 130. Again, like the Demario Davis 6 out of 8 times, Tremaine Edmunds has hit this marker under 8 tackles. So that's 3/4, 3/4 of the way, 75% of the time is good odds. Its odds are in our favor here. This week he gets Tremaine Edmunds will play against New England, which is a middle of the road matchup. I really don't like the New England matchup. A lot of it used to be like, oh, it seemed like last year, 2 years ago, New England was a team that ran it so much, played short, small ball, but like times are changing there. And for some reason this year, New England's being stingy, not really giving much points to linebackers. So if we take a look at last game to further my argument here, Kaiser White for Arizona, Mac Wilson for Arizona. These two linebackers are like, they're guys who've been on our show for taking the over on them. Like Kaiser White, 5 tackles last week against New England. Mac Wilson, 2 combined tackles against New England. Like I don't know, what's in the water when you play New England, but history tells us that this is a good stars align. This is a good chance that likely to happen with Tremaine Edmunds. I mean, Kaiser White, somebody who's any given week could have double-digit tackles, lays an egg, 5 last week. So yeah, sign me up for that. Tremaine Edmunds at minus 130. This is a guy who we're always talking about unders in general. We salivate when we hear his name with that 7.5, 8.5 marker. So yeah, good odds. Tremaine Edmunds minus 130. Let the good times roll here.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure I missed on him a couple times, but I just had to hit him on. I had to have caught him on a couple of good weeks because Tremaine Edmonds doesn't have many of them. So I think he's definitely after having hit the over on I think combined tackles a couple weeks ago, and then he barely scratched the over on solos. He definitely would have hit the under on combined tackles last week. But the solos under was what I was going for. He only had 5 solos, so uh, it seems like the safer play would be the combined tackle line. He's generally not going to hit that 7.5 tackle line. That's what I was alluding to earlier, where I would have liked to see Devondre Campbell at 7.5.
Right.
But Tremaine Edmonds is just kind of in that same breath where he's just a low tackle. He's not a very he's how do I want to say that a low floor production kind of player. I think he's more of a real life football player, a great real life football player, than he actually is like someone that you would want to bet on the overs for, or somebody on your IDP team that's going to be giving you fantasy points for the production that he gives you. So sign me up for Tremaine Edmonds. I've been hurt a couple of times so far, but sign me up again. I'm willing to be hurt again because I have confidence that it's not going to happen 3 times in a row. So sign me up for that Tremaine Edmonds under 7.5. Before I get into my last pick, I'll let Johnny tell you a little bit about some things we got going on over here at IDP Plus.
Right. So right now we are running a promo. Hopefully, if you're watching this right now, you're already subscribed. You know what it is. You're with us on Discord. You're watching all of our videos that come out, all of our podcasts from all of our wonderful colleagues. But if you are not, right now we are doing 20% off your subscription when you go to idpplus.com, which is our website. And at the checkout, when you subscribe, use the promo code props, and you will get 20% off that subscription. Right now, I do IDP Plus Trends. I do waiver wire. I do waiver wire tweets. I do a podcast with Average Joe's from Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football. We do IDP rankings. So I do many videos myself. A lot of other people do as well. A lot of good content coming from our website and our great colleagues. So check us out at idpplus.com and subscribe. Use that promo code props.
Yeah, for sure. Check out all the website, the YouTubes. Go ahead and subscribe. Throw some comments in there. We've got tons of fantasy football shows, tons of prop betting shows, offense, IDP, college. I mean, we've got everything. So you go check that out. Use the code. and get yourself a nice little discount on a month. Give us a try and see if we can hook you up for a long term kind of subscription there. So, yeah, go ahead and check it all out. We'll actually dive into the rest of our show. Johnny and I have a couple more to lay out for you guys. So my first one here, or my last pick here, I guess, the first of our last two, Terrell Bernard. I've got Terrell Bernard going under 7.5 combined tackles. This comes in at plus 100. So we're getting some plus juice. And let me tell you a little bit about Terrell Bernard in this matchup this week against the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, I alluded to earlier, John Macri puts out the tackling production sheets. Well, lucky for us, the Indianapolis Colts are also dead last in allowing tackling production to opposing linebackers. Only two linebackers all year have hit this tackle line. Two people have had two, let me say that again. Two linebackers all year have had 8 or more tackles in one game against the Indianapolis Colts. And they were both on the same team. And that was the Tennessee linebackers in like week 3 or 4. So, history tells us that linebackers, no matter who it is, generally don't get 8 or more tackles against the Indianapolis Colts. Unless it was a specific game script. I took a little bit deeper dive into that game where they did allow it, and I actually did see they ran the ball 30 or more times in that game. So more running just generally is going to lead to more tackling on the other end. But for the most part, Jonathan Taylor was hurt, so they had to make up for it in other ways. Jonathan Taylor's back. You can probably chalk him up for 20 to 25 touches, but they're not going to hand it off to many other people. So that's probably why they're not allowing much linebacker tackling production. But just to kind of add a little bit more to that, Dorian Williams has been the leading tackle getter for the Buffalo Bills so far this year since he's been taking over that LB2 role. He's averaging damn near 10 tackles a game, where Bernard's barely sniffing 7, 8 tackles. He might get 10 on a good matchup, but right now we're not looking at a good matchup. We're looking at a guy who has a pretty low tackle floor. I don't think he's even averaging 7 tackles a game. And, he's in a matchup against an offense who doesn't allow tackles to opposing linebackers, and he's not even the leading tackle getter. So I think this presents a great opportunity for us to cash in on some plus odds. So give me some Terrell Bernard under 7.5 tackles this week to wrap up the last of my picks. So let's hear hear what you might have to think about, or might have to say about that, and then give us your last pick. Goodness gracious, I will get my thoughts sorted out eventually.
Yeah, I never like to hit a man when he's down, but Terrell Bernard, right now, how he's playing, like he's not the linebacker we thought he was going to be this year. I'm sure injuries have a big part to do with that. But yeah, I like this under here, Axton. It's 7.5. I mean, this is a Dorian Williams. That's the only player I'll pick on that team to hit this feat. And 7.5 is steep. It's a bad matchup, like you said. Dorian Williams may be another different question, but for Terrell Bernard, I'm out on him, and plus you get good juice here at plus 100. So I like this one a lot, Axton. Way to find some juice. Something that I need to do better for next week, because my next pick is another minus odds here, but it is my last final pick, and I feel really good about this one. Lavonte David over 4.5 solo tackles versus San Francisco from minus 110. This is pretty close to even, right around even odds. Lavonte David, he's somebody who doesn't change. He's the leader on their defense. A game where last week KJ Britt looked like their number 2 linebacker, had a down week, was only playing 50, a little bit north of 50% of snaps. You bring in JJ Russell, you got all these moving pieces. Servatier Dennis on IR, still not to come back yet. So, there's so much uncertainty with that Bucs defense, but one thing that's certain is Lavonte David, and the fact that this is their top tackle guy. They're playing a San Francisco top 10 tackle giving to linebacker matchup. You're getting Christian McCaffrey back in this matchup, hopefully. So, I expect a lot of plays in the middle, a lot of running by this San Francisco team. I expect them to be up in this game, so there'll be plenty of chances to run, whether it's Jordan Mason, Gorendo, McCaffrey, whoever, Debo Samuel. Everyone's going to be running it. My grandma's going to be running in that game too. So to me, it's a great matchup. Lavonte David. It's not so much to ask for. 5 tackles, 5 solo tackles is all it is. And if it's minus 170, minus 180, we're not talking about it. But for minus 110, I think it's a pretty good bet for you. So sprinkle it in with a parlay. That's what I'll be doing this weekend. And Lavonte David, I'm solid to put my faith in this vet, and I think you should too. And good luck to you the rest of this weekend, all of you. Thanks for viewing and listening. Axton, back to you.
Lavonte David is a great person to take up the all of the tackles that are going to come with Christian McCaffrey finally coming back. And I generally have been kind of getting the vibe from podcasts that I've been listening to that if Christian McCaffrey is going to be playing this weekend, he's going to be playing his entire role in that game. They're not going to put him out there if he's not going to be a full go. So, given that, nobody runs the ball like Christian McCaffrey. We've seen Jordan Mason try and give his best impressions, have some pretty good weeks, but he ended up falling right off. So I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be looking to come back with a force. They're going to run this offense right through him as if they never skipped a beat. And I think Lavonte David's going to be, one of those people that just capitalizes in terms of just the tackling production on the defensive side of the ball as a result. So, being the leading tackle getter for this linebacking core for Tampa Bay, I love Lavonte David getting over 4.5 solos. And I generally believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but his splits generally lean towards solo tackles anyways. So, give me a plus matchup. A guy who's known to be a solo tackle getter and the leading tackler for his team against Christian McCaffrey. Sign me up. I'll take that.
6 out of 9
minus
weeks
110.
hit as well. 6 out of 9 games.
6 out of 9 games. We'll take that. 66% hit rate is pretty damn good when you're talking about sports betting. So, especially you got to add that with couple that with a good matchup, and I think we've got some winners on our slate this week. So, that'll wrap it up for Week 10's. I guess we'll call it a slate of picks for you guys this week. So thanks for everybody who's tuning in this week, and good luck out there again. We're just more or less sharing our research with you all. So pick and choose, see what you like, what you don't. And let us know what you tail. If you hit anything, throw some comments in there. We'll be keeping our eyes on it. So, without further ado, I'm Axton Harding. You can find me on Twitter at AxemanIDP. You can find Johnny at Johnny freaking F1 on Twitter or X. So that's gonna be it for this week. Good luck, everybody. Bet responsibly. Stay within your means, and let's see if we can. See if we can take those significant others out to a nice little dinner on the backs of our profits this week. So, again, good luck, and we'll see you back next week for Week 11 of the IDP Plus Defensive Props Podcast.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.